Justin, thank you so much for joining us for Social Impact Power Chats. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm really glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Amazing. So, we're going to walk through some incredible work that you're up to today. But before we get to today, let's go to yesterday. Tell us a little bit about how you got into social impact.
I was actually reflecting a little bit about it this morning before coming on, and there's a couple different ways that happened. I think there was in part, working within the system and kind of understanding certain vulnerabilities and how things are skewed towards growth and so forth, and definitely felt that. And in addition to that, simultaneously, when I kind of decided more so to make a greater shift in my work, I definitely had a bit of a transformational experience. I was at a festival actually that is focused on music, transformation, education, inspiration, different things like this. And I felt a lot of love and wanted to see and challenge myself how I could bring that into my work in a deeper way.
Hmm.
And I think it sparked something that I wanted to stay there, and definitely has felt maybe different ever since.
Amazing.
But took some time, as one would imagine, to figure that all out.
So,
But
how just to like,
I definitely think I'm happier because
yeah.
of,
And how many years from like when you had that spark to kind of what we're about to discuss, which is what you're up to now, just to give people at home
yeah, that was 20,
hope.
that was that was around 2015.
Okay.
Both of those kind of mutual feelings kind of seem to have come at the same around the same time and really pushed
Amazing.
into something new.
Amazing. So, for those listening, it can take a bit to marinate, and that's okay. And good things are worth the wait. So maybe, now unpack some of those good things for us. What are you doing today? What does social impact look like in your role and what you're building?
Absolutely. I mean, first, like to your point of if there's anyone listening to this that could gather anything, I think that it's really important to embrace the messy because anything, if you're going to dive into anything, it's never going to be cookie cutter and straightforward. And you're going to have to try and fail. It's going to feel uncomfortable. But there's like the Wayne Gretzky quote about missing 100% of the shots that you don't take. And
Yeah.
I think that we're at a moment, obviously, in human civilization history where like we need more people with expertise in all different type of areas to be joining on to these efforts in like a truly multidisciplinary type of way so we can actually accelerate a lot of these efforts and bring new blood and ideas and people who can implement into it. And it's kind of a yeah, it's there's no such thing as like, oh, I'm not good at that. I think everyone has their own skills that can be additive in different ways and can be different puzzle pieces to change making and creating impact.
For sure. So tell us about your puzzle pieces. What are you tinkering with? What kind of work do you all build?
Yeah, well, I joined a company called ValuesCo in fall of 2021. At that stage, we were a very young company. I joined our founder and CEO about 9 months after he kind of concepted this company. And I mean, generally speaking, as you can imagine, as you know, with starting companies, they can take different forms and evolution. But where we are now is we are, and we always have been, a technology platform, and we are a platform that really empowers multi-stakeholder collaboration. And we do that through gamified campaigns that brands, nonprofits, creators, media publishers, and consumers can all collaborate and take part in. And we're also doing it to think about how we can drive social and environmental impact goals simultaneous to driving brand engagement goals. And the
Mhm.
reason why we're doing that is because we think it's a major opportunity to be able to think about how brand marketers can use the budget that's at their disposal to be more responsible without needing to diversify into doing completely different programs necessarily. We offer an opportunity to really embed that into existing marketing and also, of course, can do things that take it a bit further and, facilitate programs and campaigns that are like specifically around impact. So generally speaking, that's what we do. I mean, a little bit more context is I think it fits into obviously a big macro landscape of changes that we have been facing in all different types of ways. I mean, specifically right now, economy, um, spending is going to be practical in a lot of ways, and it's really important to us to find solutions that especially corporations can adopt and think around investment,
Mhm.
not necessarily from like only from like a sustainability or philanthropic dollars perspective, but through kind of what I'm talking about with marketing channels. And the other things that we're noticing that are happening are customer acquisition costs are rising, and brand loyalty is actually surprisingly, or maybe not, getting more difficult and difficult because
Yeah.
there's so much choice out there. There's also more comparative shopping right now because of the economy, and there's also more shopping that's geared towards environmental friendly. However, there's a lot more people that are, especially young people, Gen Zs and millennials, that are identifying that they're more likely to buy brands that align with their values. But we're not really seeing that play out in the way it could, and it's kind of interesting as to why. Could be around education, could be around pricing, it could be around education is a big one, because I think that to go a little bit deeper around this whole landscape, like it's really difficult for a consumer to actually discern what is what.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, in some ways, I think that has been a purposeful flaw in the system that's been benefiting the few for a long time. And if you think about it, like all these, apps that we have in our phone, there's not really one that's like pervasive. That's around how people should be, understanding what the brands that they shop do. And it also begs kind of deeper questions of like around apathy and other kind of related themes. So I think we think it's really important to help kind of drive some of these shifts and think around how we are supporting um, to fulfill on the demand that's already been expressed by consumers, and actually help them to move forward and make certain type of decisions, not just shopping, but
Yeah.
also in their own kind of personal behavior, whether it's how they live, how they work, how they shop, um, how they eat, all kinds of things like this. So it's been exciting and definitely challenging to get things off the ground over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I often say we're living in the Wild West. Like this is like the chaos and the churn and all of it. Anybody who's in this work with us knows this is a totally unregulated ecosystem. And so the fact that you are trying to bring order to chaos, I appreciate and I admire. Um,
Appreciate
I'm,
it.
wondering at all of our power chats, we ask our guests to share um, you know, something that people could hold on to. So let's
Yeah.
imagine, if we will,
Mhm.
there's a brand or a company or a nonprofit that's listening to you and saying, okay, this sounds really cool. I've never
Yeah.
done anything like this before. I want to get started. What would be some advice or some nuggets of wisdom that you would give that individual? And, as they think through kind of leveraging these branded opportunities that you're talking about to gain customer access or hearts and minds or whatever is their driver.
Yeah, I mean, the two things that come to mind to me, one might sound pretty obvious, but and I think it is, but I feel like I need to say it anyways. Is
Always.
it's around authenticity, and
Yeah.
it's around really knowing your brand and making sure that you do the research and insights before you really put your stakes into the ground in a big way. And I think the other part is just trying. I feel like there's so much going on, to your point, not just in within impact, but just in the world right now, and tools at our disposal. Like marketing and media has shifted so dramatically even over just the last 5 years, and I think we're at like a nothing to lose moment. Like we're not on track to meet a lot of the sustainable development goals. There's a stat that I've been pretty fixated on recently, that there's 35 times more investment that's going towards extractiveness compared to regenerative, at a rate of like $7 trillion to 35 times less. And that was reported by the UN Environment Program.
Hmm.
So it's kind of an alarming stat given what's going on and what we all know is going on in terms of um, how corporates are needed and involved in this whole landscape, especially around climate specifically. So thinking of that even like as a kind of example to lean into, we think that really just finding a platform to talk about these things with your customers and everyone has, or your community, no matter who you are, whether you're a nonprofit and you want to have brands come and support you or vice versa. There's always an opportunity to use your platform to educate and inspire. And our hopes with that really are um, that by doing that, it really, ends up shifting behavior and ladders up what we have to do from a responsibility perspective. None of us really know where we're going to be, as you mentioned, 18 months from now, 5 years from now. But like in terms of even just thinking around how are we going to try to meet the sustainable development goals, it's yeah, there's a lot to do. And something else I'd add too is like shifting from head to heart. Empathy is a huge part of this work, as I'm sure you relate to and know very well. And the other thing is like those of us who are in positions of influence, power, privilege are not always going to be on the ground and feel the strife that some other communities are enduring. And using climate again as an example, like those many of us in the US may not feel that yet. So is that actually delaying us from acting in the way we could? Or is it, challenges within boardrooms and on the finance side of things. So I think it's so important for us to get creative right now and just find ways to lock this stuff in decision makers who want to say yes because they have empathy too and they need to protect other things they need to protect, right? But we have to find creative solutions that work for everybody, and that doesn't mean they won't benefit companies in an even greater way.
For sure. And, just picking up on that, one of the things that we really admire and try to help our clients build is a symphony of work, right? So if you care about climate, doing it in your supply chain is amazing. And if that's the only place you're doing it, it's probably too small, right? Like, how do you think bigger, and how do you bring in brand or bring in marketing, or, bring in the way you think about how you take space and use space in communities, or whatever the things are that are related to your work in climate. So I love that you're giving people a tool in their toolkit to say, hey, we care about this thing and we can integrate an approach related to branding and marketing and communications outreach that's in concert with everything else that we're trying to live our values around. So it's a really helpful resource, and I hope people check you out. And it sparks some really meaningful shots on goal that other people try to take who listen to this. So thank you. Power chats are quick. We're already at the end, which I can't believe. But the last question that we leave you with is future. I think you already hit on some notes of where you're placing your bets and where you think this work is going, but would love to share some final thoughts around how you're spending your time in thinking about kind of where the puck is going, to keep the hockey analogy going.
Yeah, for sure. I have this quote that I actually would love to share that is definitely really thought provoking on that front. I'm sure some folks are familiar with Stuart Brand and his work. He was behind the Whole Earth catalog and is the founder of the Long Now Foundation, so all around long-term thinking. I stumbled across some stuff the other day, and one of the quotes I really loved was, "Once a technology rolls over you, if you're not part of the steamroller, you're part of the road." And I think that with where technology is going right now and the speed that things are going at, it's once again really important for those of us who have an ethical perspective on how our world is being shaped to like move right now, because not everyone is prioritizing ethics first, as I think we've seen over the last decade. So that being said, I think it's for me on that front, it's just probably just to encourage people to dive in and get educated, get active, talk to people, and really find out how you can contribute to a lot of what's at play right now. And I guess to answer the question, I think part of what I'd share that kind of is akin to what I shared earlier is like not knowing exactly when our economy is going to kind of shift. I think at that time when it does shift for better, it would be wonderful for those of us who are thinking about creative problem solving to have sets of solutions that are ready to go and have already kind of been incubated to a point where we can kind of, hopefully turn things on at a much greater rate. and that would be much more difficult to do if those blueprints and proposals are not already there, ready to go. Just especially with how how much time it takes to kind of push through implementation. So I think finding space to be workshopping some of this stuff as soon as possible is really important.
100%. And I'm going to beat this metaphor to death, but you got to have your skates on to take the shots on goal. So
Mhm.
the 100 shots, go take them, but be ready to take them so that when the whistle blows, you're in the game. Thank you so much, Justin. I really appreciate you taking the time to connect and to
Absolutely.
power chat.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.